Hello and welcome to the Interior Design Business. My name is Jeff Hayward and I'm here with my co-host, Susie Rumbold, Creative Director of Tessuto Interiors and a past president of the British Institute of Interior Design, to talk lighting. We're here in the wonderful showroom setting of Simpsons at the Design Centre, Chelsea Harbour. So, Susie, what would you like to say?
Today we will be talking lighting from first fix to finished scheme. Interior designers know that lighting is crucial to the success of every project. Bad lighting can be simultaneously gloomy and glary, deadening colours and flattening textures, while good lighting can make even basic decorative schemes sing. But lighting is also a highly complex and technical minefield that designers must somehow learn to navigate. So, how should interior designers go about managing this critical design element? How early in the project cycle should lighting be considered? And what lighting knowledge and tools do designers need to succeed at every project stage? Welcome to the Interior Design Business.
Thank you so much. Now we are joined by Lee Lovett, founder and managing director of Soho Lighting.
Hello.
And award-winning interior designer Henriette von Stockhausen, founder and creative director of VSP Interiors. Welcome both to the show.
Thank you very much. True.
But before we begin, I was hoping that you could both give us just a brief introduction to yourselves and your businesses. Henriette, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Henriette von Stockhausen. My company is called VSP Interiors. We work on sort of mainly residential projects, big country houses, all over the world, really.
And how long since you set up your practice?
So I set my practice up in 2000.
Oh, so really
So
established.
25 years.
Congratulations, that's a milestone.
It's
Amazing.
a rather long time. It did go very quickly, I have to say.
You must have been 12 when you started, can I just say?
That's my joke. Lee.
I was not 12 when we started. So I'm Lee Lovett, Soho Lighting, and we also have an electrical engineering brand called Enkin that sits behind all of the lighting that we do. And we essentially started the company because we had a renovation project that went horribly wrong. And then at the end, it was in Soho, hence the name. And then at the end of this terrible money-losing project, the dimmers didn't work. And so that is why we started the company, and we had a super bright electrician who was 23 called Joshi. He's now a technical director, and he said, I know exactly why they don't work and I can fix it. And I'm sure we'll talk more about why that sometimes happens with dimming, but that's essentially our company. So
Fantastic. So Henriette, at what stage of a project should the designer consider lighting? And should designers be discussing lighting with their clients when taking the initial brief?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. It's a very, very important part of interior design. I think a home that isn't well lit is worse, or let's say an ugly or whatever, a house that hasn't been done very well, if the lighting is right, is better than an amazing super duper designed house and the lighting is flat and off. So it's a very, very important element, I think.
So you're talking lighting at that very first stage?
We do. We often work together with lighting specialists. So it depends what the size of the project is and how many people are involved and so on. But if no one else is involved, then I will do it, but right from the beginning, and I will speak to the client about it because I feel really strongly about getting it right, especially in sort of historic houses and listed buildings. You know, it's a tricky thing, and you need to kind of tackle that straight on. Yeah.
And presumably, Lee, you get approached sometimes when it's too late. And you wish you'd been called in earlier, I bet.
Often, and I'm sure we've all had projects or houses that we've done that with as well. And or you've taken a house and then you want to change its configuration and you have to do the lighting. So yeah, it becomes very tricky. There are certain things that you can do when you do retrofit lighting, and it hasn't been done from architectural plans, but it makes it difficult, definitely.
Okay.
And so on that basis then, should the lighting be considered as part of the initial project space planning? I mean, Lee, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Henriette obviously will work with clients to understand how they firstly use the space, which is the most important thing.
Furniture layouts and so on.
Furniture layouts and, yeah, how they travel through spaces, what they're mainly used for. I mean, all sorts of things come into that brief, I guess, that are important. Yeah.
Exactly, and then if we're working with a building that's being built from scratch or renovated, taking all the way back, we would work from architectural plans to then lay over a lighting plan with the interior designer to make sure that we're lighting the spaces in the way that it's going to be used, and that all of the what we call the first fixings, are in the right place, and you've got enough sockets and the pendants are coming through, the wires are flexible to come through the ceiling wherever you need them, or the walls. So essentially we'd work off of those plans.
And Henriette, do you ever find the reverse, that, normally I guess the furniture positions are going to be dictating where you put the lights and how the rooms are going to be used? Are there ever any situations where actually the building dictates the lighting position rather than the use?
I mean, not very often, I would say. I mean, or more often with natural light rather than lighting that you put in. I think natural light is unbelievably important in terms of where and how you place your furniture and your interiors, and which time of the day you spend in the room and where you sit, and all of that is obviously very important. But of course, there are some sort of historic rooms where you can't touch anything, and so therefore, the furniture will have to stay or be where it's, where the lighting is. If you have a huge chandelier, or if but it's quite rare. I would say that is the other way around, that the lighting dictates the furniture. Yeah, especially with what's going on these days. Lighting has become so much more flexible, and there's so many little things that you can do, to have light without even seeing the source of the light, which, creates real depths and shadows. And so you have a lot more flexibility these days, which is great.
One thing that intrigues me is how difficult lighting is to describe with words when it's...
Here we are doing it on the radio.
Exactly, here we are. But it needs to be experienced. So how do you communicate what you're trying to achieve to your client?
Well, I mean, there is good images that you can show to illustrate what you mean. But what I try and explain always is that actually the best sort of light is the light that you don't see, and it just makes you feel good. And there's sort of three, I guess, very basic elements to it. You need to have three light sources at least. So, and they will need to be on different circuits always, and they need to be all dimmable. So that's the bottom line. And then with that, you can create your different moods. But to illustrate that for clients is sometimes quite difficult. But if I ask them and say, look, where's your favorite restaurant? Have you thought about the lighting there? Do you see it? What do you like about it, or your hotel, or whatever? So then, I can explain on that sort of example what is good about it and how it's been used. And mainly they will understand that actually you don't need light that you see, like too many spotlights, and it doesn't, but it is that sort of glow and the shadows and the depths of light that makes a room interesting, and makes you as a person glow and feel comfortable and confident. And that's what really the essence of good lighting is. And so I try and illustrate it by images. And if we're working with a lighting consultant, they are very, very good at illustrating that. They've got a huge portfolio of things that make explain what we try.
They have a lighting room as well.
They do.
That
yes,
clients can go in.
You can go in, so you can send clients in and say, have a look. It's quite a lot more contemporary, compared to what I do, but it's still very useful to understand that lighting really has evolved, and you have so many more options these days.
What intrigues me about that is you're connecting lighting with almost a feeling in the client. Is that something you can relate to, Lee?
Oh, completely, yes. I mean, it sets the mood, doesn't it? It sets the ambience, and you can switch from working with doing task lighting that's very clear and crisp and great clarity, to then really warm, cozy atmospheres. And I think what you say is absolutely right, Henriette. It absolutely dictates the mood and the feeling in the house. And there's so many ways to create that.
So when you start on a building, Henriette, how would you go about analysing a site to work out what lighting actually will be needed?
Well, I guess the most important thing is, firstly, you need to work out how the rooms are used. how the people that live in them, walk in them. Is it a morning room? Is it an afternoon room? Is it for breakfast or, bathrooms? So how are the rooms used by everyone in the house, not just by a couple, So that would be the first thing I look at. Then I'll look at, obviously, layouts, and in particular, natural light and architecture. So lighting requirements are very different if you've got huge floor-to-ceiling windows or if you've got a huge dome, in your entrance hall. It just really depends what your natural light does. And I think I don't want to disturb what the natural light does with shadows and how it plays, because I think that's unbelievably important in rooms and in an interior. So you have to tread quite lightly and be careful and try and work around that right at the beginning. So that's how I would approach it. And then also, I think it depends how that interior will evolve, i.e., is it going to be very colourful or is it going to be very calm? What will the mood be in that space? And then you sort of do your lighting accordingly, I think. And obviously bathrooms are different things because you do need to make sure that you've got task lighting as well as, your magnifying mirror and, all sorts of different things. But even a bathroom, I think, needs to have 2 or 3 levels of light. So, yes, you might have your spots or your washers. Yes, but I think you also need pretty lights. You need your wall lights and, with lovely soft shades through which the light kind of becomes softened. And then often I put picture lights and big portraits and things. Obviously, that goes with the territory of what interiors we do. But I think I try and follow that through, even in kitchens and bathrooms, because it just creates just that much more comfortable feel to a room. So I don't know if you feel the same.
And Lee, what about things like sight lines through the building? Do you have any kind of trips for considering and mapping those in the planning process?
I think it's so important. And I think when you've got a line of sight through, it might be through a corridor into another room. And I think you can consider whether there's any architectural details in that line of sight that you might want to catch your eye and bring attention to. And that's where architectural lighting comes in so beautifully. It's like you said, Henrietta, that sometimes the most effective lighting is not the decorative unit.
Shadow.
Yeah, it's shadows. It's almost like when you contour your face, and not that I actually know how to do that, but if I did, I would. But it's like a contouring of a space, and the shadow and the spaces between the light source becomes so important. It becomes really theatrical and dramatic.
Like negative space in a painting as well. Yeah, it's a real art, yeah. But sometimes even in the garden, I mean, I think sort of sight lines, as you say, really, really important to, yes, you do your lighting in your house, but don't forget the outside, because it can be such an important vista at the end of a corridor, and you see out, and then that tree,
Lovely statue.
Amazing tree or statue is lit indirectly, and it just glows in the distance, and it really it plays with distances and shadows again, and I think it's really, really an important tool to not forget.
And in terms of architectural features, any advice for designers on how to light architectural features?
Indirectly.
Okay.
If you can. It's not always easy. But as I said, there's so many great new things, or even there's like some companies have these tiny, tiny lights which can swivel all the way around, so you can almost hide them in a bookshelf or on top of a pillow, or in a cornice, and you won't see them because they're literally they're the size of my thumb, and they're very, very strong. So they create a glow. So if you can manage to highlight the bits that you need to highlight indirectly, I think that is the best advice I would give. And keep in mind the shadows, and that not everything needs to be lit, because if you light everything, it becomes incredibly flat, and basically you might as well not bother.
Yeah, it really does. And I think there are certain tricks. So, for example, if you have a recess and you really need sort of like either an ingress or a deep baffle so it doesn't glare, like you say, Henrietta, to have it tiltable. If you've got sort of like a grazing light, which is a light that's sort of say down a wall and it's shot down parallel to it, you'll pick up all that lovely texture. Say if you've got like a brick wall or something with texture, and then if you go wider, it sort of more flattens it, but it's a great wash of light. So there's lots of tricks, and if you backlight, you can create silhouettes. So there's so many tricks that you can use.
It's nothing more magical, is there, than a pin spot on a vase of flowers on a table. I mean, it's just incredible.
Beautiful.
Very effective.
And then, so Lee, if you're sort of looking at different buildings with different constraints, are there any particular issues with lighting spaces that have low ceilings? And then conversely high ceilings. Let's tackle those.
Yes, sorry. Don't hang a pendant. In terms of head banging it. Yes, absolutely. I think actually when it's really low spaces, that's where architectural lighting really steps into the fore, and making sure. And when you have really high ceilings, of course, you can go more dramatic with statement lighting. But I think when you have high ceilings, you have to really consider the layers. You have to have lighting at the top, in the middle, at the bottom, and all the different levels. And I think that then becomes really important. Whereas when it's a smaller space, you can probably get away with like maybe missing one.
Quite low,
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
I'd like to go back to heritage properties. Now, you must face enormous challenges in some of those spaces, not just the high ceilings, but also...
Can't touch the walls, can't touch the ceiling, can't touch the floor, can't touch anything basically.
Obviously, you've got lots of experience in dealing with those sorts of situations. So what kind of ways do you overcome those constraints?
Well, I mean, I like table lamps, and I like picture lights. There's nothing better than a painting that's just a painting that is lit, and that becomes also again a reflective light, so a light source, but it sort of glows. So you have to be a little bit more, you have to work around the problem really. But table lamps are lovely, and reading standard lamps are lovely by chairs, and I mean we do. So we do always have a 5-amp circuit everywhere, and I mean they're generally in the house anyway, so you just have to sort of adapt perhaps. But so that plus wall lights, which are generally already there, might have a slight problem with locations, but sometimes you just have to work around that. But yeah, I don't use a huge amount of spotlights. Just simply because we generally can't touch the ceilings, or I mean, I do new builds, a few, so then we probably would, but it's not anymore that sort of grid of set of lights where everything is symmetric and whatever that you used to have and at the beginning. It's very strategic and very rarely used. So sometimes it might be a pin spot onto a sculpture or something, or it might be a specific light which has a cutout to just highlight the painting rather than the frame, so it really pops. So they might just be dotted around the ceiling where potentially we might have access or something, and so we try and work around it. But
Okay. And
yeah.
Lee, probably you sell lots of products that can help overcome a lot of problems.
We do. I mean, there's so many different ways to approach lighting, and like you were saying about the spotlights, Henriette, that you can have directional spots that are fixed to the ceiling so that they don't actually go into the ceiling that you're not allowed to touch. And also there are kinetic switches, a kinetic switch system that you can use, and I mean, many people might know what a kinetic switch is, some people might not. So just to explain that a kinetic switch is where the energy comes from actually the physical trigger of the switch, so the motion. So it's charged by motion, so it doesn't need any wiring, and you can stick a kinetic switch anywhere that you want to without rewiring, and it talks to a transmitter that can go into the ceiling rows or you can just hide it anywhere within a light, and so that gives you a lot of flexibility when you have a period property. It's a really excellent. So
Do you use those a lot?
Yes, yeah, very useful.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, I think that's the thing, is that there are so many retrofit. The LED has made it so much more flexible than it used to be.
That's what I meant. It's really, really evolved. And what's out there now, I mean, lots of people might not even know the latest, kinetic switches and so on. That's why I think it's so important, to keep yourself up to date a little bit, because it just gets better all the time.
So then conversely, having talked about period properties and some of the difficulties of cutting into love and plaster ceilings and those things that you're not allowed to do, what about very contemporary buildings? Have you ever come across, either of you, a situation where perhaps an architect has designed something and hasn't considered the lighting, and therefore you're really then struggling to light, for example, a kitchen under an enormous glazed panel? How do you go about managing situations like that? Lee, do you enter?
I think it's quite well, it doesn't necessarily just happen on contemporary properties, but I think even if you inherit a house and the lighting is all in the wrong place for the way that you want to live and use it, it's such a challenge. And I think if you don't want to rewire the whole house, it's just a case of you get some very bright electricians that can kind of hook cables, and when they get up it doesn't actually need a massive amount of work. But things like switches and sockets, if they're in the wrong place, you might be able to hook cables and create new ones. So sometimes it's simple, and then if it really isn't, and if you just can't get access to where you need lighting to be, it's a case of either a kinetic switch system or the bulbs that can be rechargeable. I mean, sometimes it's
powered.
It's a great fix and a great invention.
And sometimes thinking about different things that can be lit, like glazed kitchen cabinets, things that, are not your obvious, saying you can get light to easier if it's in a piece of furniture, if it's, so I think if you think a little bit more creatively, you can probably make adjustments in a way that will also work, not just your standard ceiling fitting wall lights, whatever. So I think, think a little bit outside the box, and there'll be solutions these days.
So before we continue, we would like to do a quick shout out to Natural Mat, the organic bed and mattress company based on the banks of the River Exe in Devon. If you're designing a space where wellness and sustainability matter, then this is a name to know. That's right, Susie, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Their beds and mattresses are handcrafted using natural organic materials, no synthetics, no glues, and zero harmful chemicals. Plus, their organic wool fibres make them naturally fire retardant, so there's no need for chemical sprays.
And they're also the first B Corp certified bed company in the UK. Solar-powered workshop, plastic-free packaging, and a brilliant bed and mattress for life initiative. Refurbish, recycle, or donate so nothing ends up in landfill.
And their showrooms are total design inspiration. Each one features a sleep zone with dim lighting, calming scents, and even a bird song soundtrack recorded in the nature reserve by the Devon Workshop. So it's a sensory experience you and your clients will find inspirational.
So Natural Mat, where sustainability meets sleep beautifully. You can learn more at naturalmat.co.uk or visit them in London, Knutsford, Devon, or in the Cotswolds. And Lee, lighting is often subdivided into three categories: general, task, and accent. Can you just explain those, and are they useful for interior designers to understand?
Yes, I think they're essential. That's the layer of lighting. So obviously it's lighting to support the function that you're doing. So you say, for example, you're in a kitchen and you might have spotlights with a really sort of warm white, sort of 2,700 Kelvin color temperature, and that's great for chopping as long as you've got great clarity, which is high CRI level. It's always confusing because it's called color render index, but it's nothing to do with color. So CRI is the extent to which artificial light represents natural daylight. So when you're in the clothes shop and you're trying on an outfit and you just want to see what the colour's like, so you take it to the window. So a really high level CRI, like level 100, is the equivalent to natural daylight. The highest bulbs that you can get is around 95 to 97. But that gives you a really great clarity so that you can see light clearly. It's also got lots of reports associated with it around around mental health and reduction of eye strain. So you've got the colour temperature to consider with task lighting, and then the clarity of light. But then as you go into the evening, you might want to change that colour temperature to a really sunset, cosy kitchen supper sort of vibe and mood. Again,
Warmer.
yeah, warm sort of 1800 Kelvin temperature. And there are bulbs now that you can get that change that colour. So by using a dimming toggle or switch, you can change it the Kelvin colour temperature.
So that's much more like the old incandescent lamps that, as you dimmed them, got warmer. Because that's what we all remember and miss from LED, which tends to just gets both flat as you dim it.
Yeah.
So this is another really amazing product innovation.
Yeah, it works beautifully for certain things. So yes, that layering, you've got task, and then you've got your different accents, and I think it's really important. I think you probably feel the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Very important, because for different things you need different lights.
Yeah.
Just like different outfits for different occasions.
I agree.
So
And Lee, you were just chatting about accent lighting. Have you got any hints or tips for accent lighting? Sort of, actually, Henriette, you mentioned some of these very tiny little fittings that are now available, and you've talked about pin lighting. But I mean, what other sorts of things would you accent within an interior?
Architectural features, and anything that you really want to draw. I mean, that some buildings have such a beautiful bone structure and so many gorgeous features that you want to bring up. But I think it's, I think, and then there might be artifacts or sculptures that you want to accent. But I think that's where that architectural lighting that's just about lighting the feature rather than lighting the space.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
And then I guess if you don't have the good architectural features, then maybe it would be things. I mean, you mentioned.
But I mean, I often put these little ones in bookcases, and when you mix a few nice, books and maybe a little bust or something, and we just pop these little things in, and you can easily have them at the back of the bookcase. And it's all about that, what I was saying earlier, it's all about creating that glow and a shadow and the contrast between it that creates a depth. And it really helps also in the bookcase to create that depth in the bookcase. It brings an interior alive. And so, that's what I think is essential. And if you can't do it with your architectural features, do it with your favorite bits and pieces, with a bust, with a special vase,
Beautiful
with
curtains.
some flowers, beautiful. Curtains are slightly different. Curtains need a wash. So it doesn't really work to sort of pin spot them. They sort of need to be evenly washed. So you need to make sure that when you're putting it in the ceiling, even if you don't see it, let's say if they're kind of, you need to make sure you're the right distance away from it, and you need to make sure you have directional light so that you tilt them and they sort of gently wash, so it becomes like a glow rather than too flat. But it cannot be the major source of the room. This is really only playing with sort of accents, and it needs to be the lowest of the sort of packing order, if you know what I mean. But nothing is more uncomfortable than having a black curtain or window or something. So I think it needs considering, but it certainly is not more important than many other things. So
And Lee, we've talked a bit about shadow and light. Are there any rules designers can follow to look at how they're treating shadow and light? I mean, I think the Japanese actually recommend it as an aesthetic, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And that's all about spacing light to allow the shadow to fall between the lights, because otherwise if you colour drench, it becomes really flat and you lose all of that drama and the ambience. So yes, it is a Japanese theory.
So be brave about shadow. Don't feel that you have to light everything. And
embrace it.
Yeah.
quite the opposite. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lighting also plays on different levels, and Henriette, you've already talked about this, but how do you go about balancing? How do you go about the balancing act of high, mid and low level lighting in a space?
It's a big one.
I guess it is a balance. So that's, that you're quite right there. So to get the balance right, I guess many things, it depends on many things. Size of the room, the amount of furniture, the height of the ceiling, how many tall elements you've got, how many lower elements you've got. I guess you just get better with doing it. I mean, that sounds a real cop-out, but I think it is. It's just something you learn along the way. And, I know when something is not right. Sometimes you go to a restaurant and you go, oh, God, how could they get it so wrong? I couldn't necessarily pinpoint how they got it so wrong, but I know it's wrong, if you know what I mean, because you feel it. And so I think it's all about how a room makes you feel when you walk into it at any time in the day, really. And my best advice would be to keep it flexible. I think I talked about that earlier. Make sure that everything is on a dimmer. Make sure that you've got 3 or 4 different levels of light. So your picture lights and wall lights, your ceiling lights, your 5 amp circuits, table lamps, whatever. So that you have the flexibility of, going, oh, it's a grey day today. I think I'll put my picture lights and my wall lights on and maybe, the table, so you can actually, it gives you many, many more options. So
and that's what it's great where you can zone, isn't it, Henriette? Because so you can set it with the right switches, you can and circuits, and you can set it so that you have that, ambience, welcome home, evening, supper,
sunny day, grey day, good mood, bad mood. But that's the thing, you have infinite options. If you can switch everything separately and you can dim it, there's so many combinations that you can do. And that way you can find the right balance for you at that time, for whatever task, for whatever you're doing in there, whether you're having a drinks party or, doing your homework. It doesn't really, you can then adjust it and get that balance right. And I think I think everybody knows when the balance is right, because we all walk into the spaces and go, oh, lovely, So, personally for yourself, that might be very different to what I feel. Oh, lovely. Do you know what I mean? It just depends what mood you're in, what you're doing, and that sort of thing. So keeping it flexible, having as many sources and having it all on the dimmer just gives you every opportunity to get it right.
Understood. You talked earlier about architectural fittings, which are different to decorative fittings. Do you just want to clarify the differences?
Yes. Architectural lighting should just disappear. And you really don't want it to be seen.
Visible, embedded in the wall.
Yeah, the source is invisible, but the output of light is very visible and sort of lights the features and the spaces. Whereas statement lighting is where the actual light itself is the show. It's a pick me sort of light.
Got it. So decorative or statement lighting, the two terms are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And then with architectural lighting, it's often, well, again, we've touched on this already, that the viewer should be aware of the light, but not the light source. And you touched on this earlier too, so this might be a bit of a redundant question, but particularly architects used to just, apologies to any architects we might have in the audience, were famous for sort of putting serried racks of spotlights all over, grids of lights.
I think electricians do that too.
Yeah,
Change your architect.
Or your electrician.
Yeah.
So in that context, is the arrangement of lights on a ceiling at all important, or does it really not matter?
It really doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant.
Arbitrary.
It's where you need it.
Right.
Yeah, and as little as possible, I would say, in the ceiling. For me,
Yeah.
that's my opinion. But
I would
hotels are different.
Yeah, of course. And I would agree. And I think especially we do lots of hotel kitchen lighting plans, and it becomes really important that the light is punched down over the workspace. But there are other spaces within that kitchen space that it doesn't need it. So I think that everybody's different with what they like, but I think definitely punching light down over the working countertops is key, and then it's up to you with the rest.
And it seems to me that there's so much choice, particularly in downlights these days. You've got tilted downlights, you've got plastering, you've got surface mounted. The IP ratings are all different, and it again, LED lights. There's a lot more versatility now coming through with LED lights, and the color changing you can do with them. So, I mean, my God, how do you stay up to date with it all?
Well, you get yourself a great interior designer.
And a great lighting specialist.
And I also think always asking all the questions is really, really good. If you're not sure where to start, Lee or, whoever's in the showroom will always be able to answer your questions and tell you, for your kitchen, start with that. So just asking the questions, I think, is really important.
But just to unpack it a bit further, Lee, so what constitutes the perfect spotlight? What should designers be looking for as features?
Again, it depends on the purpose. It depends what you're looking for. There's different sizes spotlights that if you've got a smaller spotlight, as Henriette was saying, it punches down a really strong light. A bigger spotlight will have a wash. You have aesthetic decisions. So, for example, whether the spotlight is ingressed into the ceiling or whether you like a bezel.
Anti-glare baffles and that sort of
Yes,
thing?
yeah, exactly. If you have a deep bezel, it's anti-glare. Tiltable's important depending on where you want to direct the light. IP ratings always essential in a bathroom and a kitchen. But yeah, there's so much choice, but it's choice for different purposes and function. And yeah, we have a huge tech team that can talk all about that.
Now, we're finding, or I'm hearing, that some clients are sort of rediscovering the old-fashioned joy of individually going around and turning on their table lamps. Does this mean that lighting control systems in domestic settings perhaps have had their day? Are they dying a death?
Provocative.
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, lighting controls are it just depends. I think if we're talking about home automation, I think there are certain clients that absolutely love home automation. All of our products work with home automation, and I think the key thing with home automation is actually just making it really relevant to the client. Only have settings and scenes that they want to use, because sometimes it's so complex and you don't know what you're pressing and what light array is going to come on and off, and then it just becomes frustrating. But the other thing with home automation is it's very costly to set up and to install. I mean, we have a circuit that involves a Zigbee module.
It's wireless, isn't it, Zigbee?
It basically is completely wireless, and it's its own system, so it doesn't involve Wi-Fi. But you would essentially, we put a little Zigbee module in the back of certain switches, and they all talk to each other. So you have all the functionality. You can voice activate it, you can use it on a phone app, but you don't have any of that complex and costly home automation, and it gives you the function. So, for example, if I'm leaving the house, I can just one swipe, all lights off. When I'm coming home, I can set the mode and can change the lighting outside of the home. So that functionality I personally really enjoy, but it's no more complex than that for me.
We've talked a bit about dimming, and I think we shouldn't even ask the question to dim or not to dim. We need to dim. But what about the different dimming protocols, and what do they all mean? I'm not sure who's.
So residential, it's quite simple. Just have a trailing edge dimmer.
Yep.
Really, really. Then we'll start when you get to commercial, because it all depends on the scale. And if you've got a big scale, then you'll want to use 0 to 10 volt dimming, and what that enables you to do is to control many different circuits and have a lot more autonomy and control over the lights. And when they come on, it becomes really important with a commercial setting. And then there's DALI, which is dimming addressable lighting interface.
You nailed it.
And thank you. And again, it gives you real control over many different lights and can control all the different lights individually or as groups, and it becomes quite important for commercial. But for residential, just ensure that the dimmers, if small scale residential, I mean, some residences are palaces, aren't they?
But you're lovely, the switches, what's so great, I think, is that you can engrave what is what, which I think that is where the problem is in residential, that you've got, a whole bank of switches and you just go like, which one is for which. Exactly. And then you kind of, I know which ones they are, but my husband, for example, does not, very clearly, because I mean it's all over the place, and then there's one switch which switches one thing off, and if you have it off, the other switch doesn't work. I mean, honestly. But if it was labeled, like, and I love those, those are my favorite thing.
Yeah, that
just makes it so easy because you know exactly what's what.
It does.
Great.
That came about because in our kitchen we've got an 8 gang, and we lived there 7 years. I still didn't know which one did what. I was like, we've got to label these. So that's why we did that a number of years
lovely
ago.
as well.
Thank you.
It's just a really nice touch.
And actually on those dimming circuits as well, I think it's really important to have a multi-way dimmer, which I just didn't mention, which means that you can dim from any point, which becomes really important.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's problems with the old-fashioned two-way circuits.
Yes, where you could only dim from up the top of the stairs.
This is the problem with my husband.
There you go.
Somewhere it gets dimmed off, and then I try and switch it on, and nothing happens, and you're like, not again. But every day, I'm not kidding. Anyway, my poor husband.
Still married.
Yes. But if we had I think I'd
Multi-way.
swap it now.
I think you do, Henriette.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Done.
So, Lee, we were talking about the fact that sometimes people overuse these preset scenes and that nobody can remember what does what, and all they end up doing is turning the lights on and off, which seems a bit pointless. Are there any rules for determining what lights should go on what circuits? How do you divide them up?
Yeah, I think so. I think you have your, Henriette has sort of alluded to it already, in that you have your 5 amps. They should be on a circuit. Then you have your pendants and your wall lights, and then you might have architectural features. But I think and you don't need to just necessarily have circuits against rooms. It can be, so it could be and we're talking about line of sight. So it could be the circuits attached to your line of sight through the house. So you walk in and you want to put that, and it could connect to the garden as well, and you could have an evening setting, a welcome home evening, and it just sets the ambience for when you walk in. So I think it's thinking beyond a room and how the person uses the space. Is that old adage,
Which comes right back full circle to that original taking the brief.
yeah.
I would definitely also make sure that you keep your ceiling, anything that's on the ceiling, separate from anything that's on the wall.
Always.
And I mean, I sometimes connect, if I can't have that many circuits or whatever, I sometimes connect my picture lights with the wall lights. But if I cannot do that, that would be even better, because then you can, again, going back to the multiple options that you've got, then you can combine it so that you get it just perfect for that particular setting. So, but yeah, definitely keep the ceiling ones from the wall lights for sure.
Fantastic. Okay, final question. One piece of advice for interior designers in how to approach lighting and lighting design on their projects, what would it be?
I mean,
Have you got an answer?
Definitely. But I'm going to pinch Henrietta's. Always have everything on a dimmer. Always have everything on a dimmer.
yeah, and be interested, I guess, in the latest developments of lighting, and kind of inform yourself really, really well, and experience lighting consciously. When you walk into a space, make sure you understand. If it's a space that feels good, look around, check it out, see what's there, see how many levels, see, just really find out what it is that makes a good ambience in a space. And then you can sort of recreate it, really, I think.
Great advice. Thank you. Let's have a round of applause for our guests. Thank you.
Lee and Henriette, thank you so much. That was incredibly insightful, and I've learnt loads, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, great insights. And thank you also our live audience and our hosts, Simpsons, our hosts, and also Soho Lighting, who have a lovely area over there that I'm sure Lee would love to take you all through. Okay, we do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and please do get back to us on our social channels at Interior Design Business Pod to share any feedback. You can watch us on YouTube or listen to us on podcasts anywhere. The Interior Design Business is a Wildwood Plus production. Thank you.